Okay, so a few weeks ago, I did a post and I was doing some savage curls on the Smith machine. The amount of comments that I got about me popping, ripping, or snapping my bicep, I think we're gonna need some education about why this is extremely unlikely with the exercise that I was doing. People were sending me videos or, sending me other videos of guys snapping their biceps, but they weren't comparing the same thing. Let's make sure it's apples to apples, not apples to oranges. Okay, a lot of the references that I got were from people doing preacher curls, okay? This is a completely different animal. Let me explain why. When I'm in this position, my arm from the elbow up is locked. What does that mean? It means all of the weight, okay? In other words, all of the shear force is put directly where the bracing of the pad stops. And where is that? Right on your bicep tendon, okay? Shear force is a real thing. And on a hinge joint, it's very dangerous, specifically preachers and leg extensions. I'll explain leg extensions another day. So essentially we have a weight and it's up here. But with physics, as that weight lowers at about this point right here, the mechanical load increases. The weight exponentially increases the further you go down, but so does the shear force. What does that mean? Snap. Because you have a very, very isolated point right underneath where the bracing is, where there's an exponential amount of shear force. You mix that with a heavy load, that's a recipe for disaster. Snap, crackle, pop. Now the difference. Now, what I was doing was right here on the Smith machine, okay? It looks similar, but it's completely different. Let me explain. When I'm hanging over the edge here, where is the tendon load? My arm is in a dead hang. There's no shear force, right? This is actually an isolated concentration curl, not a preacher curl, okay? The risk of injury is extremely, extremely low. Even with a heavy weight, which I'm not recommending you do, and you come all the way down, the most dangerous part would be here at the bottom with a weight that you can't support. When your arm goes into terminal extension, okay? And you actually bounce to the top. That's the only point where there's an exponentially higher risk of injury. Why? 50-pound dumbbell, okay? And I bounce at the bottom 10%. That weight doubles and triples in a millisecond. That puts a huge amount of pressure on the bicep and the bicep tendon specifically. Remember, your muscle is connected to a tendon. And most of these rips that people see are the short head of the bicep snapping off of the tendon. So when I'm here, as I'm currently, no matter what happens, I'm not getting any tendon pressure because my arm's in a dead hang. Now, it's the opposite. If I'm braced here and that weight's going lower, I have mechanical shear that begins right here because I'm covered under here. That's where the danger happens. But it can't. I'm in a dead hang. There's no restriction. Another example of shear force. I'm not saying leg extensions are dangerous, but it does create a lot of shear force. And let me explain why. When I'm here, remember, the elbow and the knee are single hinges, okay? So, when I'm here and I'm going into an extension, okay? The weight from my knee back to my hip, my femur is placed on the pad, okay? As I extend up, what happens? Well, two things. As I'm going up, I'm increasing the load through physics. This lever arm gets longer. The longer that lever arm, where's the load? Over here. If that load was closer to my knee, I would have less shear force, but the load's further away, more shear force. So at the top of a leg extension, you have maximum load on the end. Where is the breaking point? Well, where you're not supported, where you're supported, right? Which means maximum shear force at this point. I'm not saying leg extensions are dangerous. I'm just referencing it so people can think about it in context to preacher curls. I think I covered anything. If I didn't, ask me a question, and why not just click all the stuff at the bottom? Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Peace out, Titan.